Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Turin here with another Warhammer Total War online commentary. In this particular battle, I am playing the Warriors of Chaos, and I'm going to be facing off against an Empire opponent. So prior to this DLC, this was a very tough matchup for the Warriors of Chaos, but I feel that the Empire may still have a slight edge, but I feel like Chaos can really contend. Even just getting these new few units here with the Aspiring Champions, who are absolutely great, because a lot of the new Chaos builds, the more competitive ones in my opinion, do center around very heavy-duty air forces. So when you do those type of builds, obviously your air force, your leadership is going to be out and about kind of chasing valuable units, and that kind of leaves your infantry corps without encouragement. And that can be an issue, especially in Marauder builds or, builds that you want to bring Chaos Trolls, especially, because I believe their starting leadership is like 38 or something. So having these Aspiring Champions among your troops while your leadership is elsewhere is very valuable and makes a big difference. And on top of that, they have absolutely amazing stats for what you're paying it with, I believe is 550, so very strong unit. Also on that same note, you can now mount your Chaos Sorcerers. So the Chaos Lord of Fire and the Chaos Sorcerer with the Lore of Death here are both mounted and essentially become pretty darn good combatants, and they also cause terror, so very strong. And having these Manticores and these Flying Sorcerers really allows you to contend with the Empire Air Force. And as you can see over here, my opponent has a General of the Empire, he has an Empire Captain, the Amber Wizard who will be summoning a Manticore, so we're going to have a pretty darn even Air Force battle, which is very exciting. So as far as the rest of my army goes, I have some Chaos Warriors, pretty decent front line, very strong, good combat stats, 44 melee defense, 34 melee attack. And the base Chaos Warrior infantry is very strong. Then I also have the Aspiring Champions in the secondary line. I have Forsaken, who I just absolutely love against Empire. Because Empire tends to bring, kind of fancy units, like they'll bring a big flashy air force like this. They'll often bring Demogryph Knights, and when you do that, it forces you into Spearmen and very low tier infantry, and Spearmen get absolutely annihilated by Forsaken. They only have 30 armor, so the Forsaken with their, what is their weapon strength? I believe it's, yeah, it looks like it's 64 right now with their buffs on the stack there, and it's just so darn strong, so they can tear through infantry. And also on that same note, they have 48 move speed. So what I like to do is engage with my main front line here, just kind of push them forward, very standard. And then when you get to the front line, you distract their mobile units with your Air Force, and you kind of circumvent their main line with the Forsaken and just kind of circle around their flanks here, and it's very strong. So huge fan of those units. So as far as my opponent's forces go, he has a General of the Empire, he has an Empire Captain, Amber Wizard to summon the Manticore. So this is a very traditional Empire Air Force, which is quite strong. He also has a group of Demogryph Knights over here, and I also forgot to mention I do have some Chaos Poison Warhounds over here as well. He has some handgunners here, which are a pretty good choice against Chaos. They have armor piercing. One issue with them is making sure they get an effective arc. Against monsters units like trolls and giants, they're gonna be able to get a pretty good angle, but he's gonna have to kind of work them out into the flanks because they won't be able to shoot over the spearmen very effectively into my infantry. He also has the Sunmaker, which is decent. A lot of Chaos players have been bringing a lot of Marauder-centric armies, and if I had done that, this would have been really strong. But against armored units, it doesn't do a ton of damage, and it does tend to run out of ammunition quite quickly. So it's kind of it can be a hit and a miss, but it's definitely a very fun unit. Something else I forgot to mention is I do have the dual sorcerer build, so I have a Chaos Sorcerer with the Lore of Fire. I brought the Cascading Fire Cloak as well as the Flaming Sword of Ruin, and then with the Lore of Death Sorcerer, I mean, on a Manticore, he's a good combatant, but I also just brought a Spirit Leech. I really wanted to just punish that enemy hero, because against, the Empire, it's often going to just kind of be a hero race in the air, so I really wanted to win that, and, Spirit Leech is a very good tool for doing that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So my opponent over here does have this Demogryph Knight deployed, and he's kind of using it to kind of zone out my Chaos Warhounds, which is exactly what you want. So if you guys are playing Chaos, I would highly suggest, if you have a little extra money, instead of bringing like a group of Marauders, simply bring some Chaos Warhounds and just kind of keep them around the flank, feign in, charge, and pull back, feign in, charge, pull back, and your opponent's going to allocate the Demogryph Knights, or, at least a group of Empire Knights to chase them down, which is very good. Because in this meantime, this Demogryph Knight, he could be posturing here, getting ready to flank my units, but he's actually more concerned with dealing with these Chaos Warhounds, which definitely is very good for me. And also, they're very fast, and people often forget about them. They have 95 move speed, so right now, he probably has all his attention on my front line, and he's looking to flank over here, so I could probably honestly just charge in here against these handgunners, get a little disruption right as my troops come in. But as you can see, my opponent's Sunmaker is doing some pretty devastating damage here to my front line. And it's still, hey guys, it's quite a powerful unit, even though it doesn't have armor piercing. So it has done about 15% HP damage on this group of Chaos Warriors, but that's a-okay. It's already at, like, I believe half ammo, give or take. So right now, at the same time, we're also posturing up our air forces. I do have this Chaos Sorcerer here and the Lore of Death. I didn't want to start spamming Spirit Leech until the battle got a little bit closer to happening, but that's all right. So the Chaos Poison Warhounds do get in here, and they actually get a decent little charge on these guys. So, they're definitely a unit I don't mind sacrificing, and if it can shut down this whole group from firing while my infantry corps is now within range of these handgunners, that's very good for me. That's a lot of damage. I'm mitigating it. But they will rat off, but, they're pretty a pretty low leadership unit, but they will come back, which is very, very nice. But I am taking a lot of missile fire and other stuff like right now, so unfortunately you can see the Sunmaker coming in here raining some fire. These guys are still confident with the aspiring champions nearby, so thankfully it wasn't terribly devastating. And you can see the handgunners now are also getting a pretty good line of fire on most of my troops, but they are shielded, which is a pretty nice benefit, and so the aspiring champions are also shielded, which is very, very good. So we're about to have our cataclysmic battle here in the air to determine the fate and the outcome of this particular game. So I initiate with a Spirit Leech here, which is going to be very good. It's going to, start that damage off right away. And the Chaos Lord with the Kindle Flame from the Lord Fire Sorcerer is going to be very, very strong. So we can take a look here. You can see the enemy leader is already really low. He's down to like 40%. But on that same note, he is targeting it looks like he's targeting one of my sorcerers. I think he was trying to target my Chaos Lord. You can see he was taking a little bit of damage, but sometimes in these Air Force battles, it can get pretty wild. So he actually does land his Amber Wizard, which is something you can do to like protect it, and it also intercepted these Forsaken, which protected the flank over here, which is very good. And you can see this General of the Empire is very low, but he has a Potion of Toughness that's just barely keeping him in. And I'm surprised he didn't have the Potion of Foolhardiness. He's very lucky that he didn't rout, because if his leadership had broke, he wouldn't have gotten any of the effects of that potion. So right now I do pop the Potion of Foolhardiness as well as the Potion of Toughness. We're kind of just going fisticuffs here, and more likely than not, you can see he does have the handgunner fire here. We're probably both going to lose our lords, to be honest. So we'll go ahead and go in the front line here. You can see the Chaos Infantry, though. He invested a lot in the Air Force and the Sunmaker and Demogryph Knights. And the Chaos Infantry are just going to tear these guys to shred. These aspiring champions are just going to shred these low armor units because they have very high combat stats. They don't have your traditional armor piercing, but still are just absolute beasts. You can see they're launching the spearmen across the line. And also the Trolls, unfortunately, I was hoping you would have like some great swords. The Trolls aren't in the best situation against these anti-large guys, but they're still going to crush pretty hard. I mean, they have, 100 or 86 weapon strength or something, so that's very, very good. And at the same time, I'm getting the Flaming Sword Rune and all kinds of buffs on my front line, so it's a pretty good situation in terms of the Chaos fight. Not Chaos fight, but the infantry fight. So back to the Air Force. So the Lord of Fire Sorcerer is in pretty good shape. It is being chased by a Manticore. You can see my Lord over here is fleeing. He is shattered. This Amber Wizard is also wavering, and I believe his Lord did die. So we definitely just basically traded our Lords. We traded most of our heroic units. I do have a Chaos Manticore back here, but the Empire Captain with the potion should be able to beat the Manticore pretty hands down. Even though the Manticore does have slightly higher weapon strength, I think. Let's go ahead and see. Yeah, so it looks like this Empire Captain is at 375, but he does have that potion, I believe. So back in the front line, things are going pretty well. The Spearmen over here held up for a little while, but you can see most of the low-tier troops are kind of routing off. And the Sunmaker did run out of ammunition, so these guys are probably going to have to get in a fight, which is definitely not fun. And the Aspiring Champions and the Chaos Infantry is just so darn strong now. I actually kind of want to try some other builds with that are more troll-centric, so you bring more Marauders, and then you also bring Aspiring Champions, and then like 2 or 3 groups of Trolls. I'd be interested to try that out, but a lot of Empire players will bring a lot of Spearmen and units like that, so it's kind of hard to pull off. He also did have an Empire Captain who wasn't mounted. He was down on the ground, and that's pretty much all he has left as far as this infantry corps goes. So you can see the Chaos Sorcerer, the Lord of Fire, just kind of riding around doing his thing. He's kind of my last, leadership unit, really. My Manticore over there did get chased off. My opponent still has an Amber Wizard. This Manticore is broken, but it'll probably come back. It's not shattered yet. And he does have a very, very healthy Empire Captain over here, so that was pretty scary. Also, he has some handgunners who are still online, but as far as his main infantry corps goes, I have a ton. I have a full group of Aspiring Champions. They haven't lost a single model, but the Demogryph Knights might be able to do something about that. But the Trolls, with their armor piercing and high weapon strength, you can see they just threw up those Demogryph Knights there, and we're actually able to chase them off. So Trolls are also pretty fast units, but one thing about Trolls versus Demis is the Trolls have extremely low leadership, so if they do get isolated by the Demogryph Knights, it's going to be a tough day for them. So right now, I'm just trying to shatter what leadership is left on the ground. And you can see I'm using some Forsaken over here to just chase down these troops. And Forsaken are great for that. Very, very good cleanup unit. They're fast, and they can really shred low-tier infantry very quickly. So they're also being supported by the Chaos Sorcerer with the Lord of Death, who's actually still alive, but unfortunately he is chased off by this Empire Captain here and probably will not be coming back. So something to note is that the Manticores do have 85 speed against the 110 of the Pegasus. So the Empire does have that advantage when it comes to that particular battle. So over here, the Trolls are actually being really cost-effective. They're going fisticuffs with these Demogryph Knights, and it's a pretty good matchup considering they're like an 850 or 900 resource unit facing off against a very, very expensive Demogryph Knight. And any damage they can do, because, the cycle-charging Demogryph Knights against my, I don't really have any traditional anti-large. I just have Chaos Warriors. These guys will be very good. So any damage the Trolls can do to them before they break is going to be good. And you can see they got them down to about 1300 HP, which is quite nice. Over here, you can see the Chaos Sorcerer with the Lord of Fire. He's become my new Lord. He's kind of chasing off this Manticore, and he was also able to break that Empire Captain, which is huge. And I believe he already used his potion. Yeah, just total MVP right there, chasing off that Manticore as well. So as far as my opponent's forces, he does have some units coming back from route, but unfortunately the Spearmen are quickly going to return to their routing protocol here. Just getting crushed by these Aspiring Champions. Just such a cool unit. I really can't wait to see what they do with new Chaos units or any DLC. I mean, obviously, I think Bretonia definitely needs to be finished. Their roster's pretty darn thin, and they're such a cool faction with so much potential, but Chaos definitely got some nice treats. These guys are definitely very thematic in regards to the traditional Chaos lore. So you can see his Empire Captain does come down here and is dive bombing my troops, and this was definitely a bit of a liability. A very, very healthy Empire Captain who already did use his potion, if I'm not mistaken. And he is surrounded by the Chaos Warriors and the Aspiring Champions who will do pretty good against him. It's still going to take some time, and you guys see there's actually 4 minutes left in the battle here, so let me know your guys' thoughts. I actually might consider hiding the timer in future battles, but you guys let me know your thoughts on that. So these Demogryph Knights do come in and get a nice rear charge here, and my opponent, very, very well played. He's just pulling them out as soon as they come in and cycle charging. But thankfully, some of my Aspiring Champs do get some nice attacks on them and are able to lower their HP down to, let's go ahead and take a look, so 1100. So they took about 200 damage there, so their leadership is at the steady range right now, so it's at 47, so they could break somewhat easily. So especially if I'm able to kill this Empire Captain, who's one of their last kind of inspiring units, that's going to be very, very big for winning that atrocious battle. So the Empire Captain unfortunately does get back online, and it's not a good situation for this Chaos Sorcerer. I was looking for something to land on so he doesn't get isolated in the air, and then you can simply just run back through your troops right here, and it's a very, very good tactic. So if you're being chased, you land and then pull back through your infantry line, and it definitely gives you a lot of cover. So thankfully he has the support of these Chaos Warriors and these not Exalted Heroes, but Aspiring Champions and other units, and I think there's still some Forsaken in the mix there. Very, very cool. But the Demogryph Knights are going to come in and get a pretty darn good charge here. I don't you saw that Chaos Warrior fly right into the camera. But on that same note, I actually saw a Demogryph Knight model go down. If I'm not mistaken, they're still at 11, so it's a very, very resilient unit. And they're actually confident now, so their leadership somehow went up. So, and also some of these handgunners, another thing with Empires, they do have like a lot of low-tier infantry that will come back. So these handgunners in a battle like this make a huge difference. So this Chaos Sorcerer is going to get down here and do some business with his Manticore, and he should be able to terrify them and then finish them off from there. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of that change, the fact that the Sorcerers can now ride on these mounts. I mean, it kind of puts them, I don't know if they're as good as the Empire, they might be. I mean, I've been having a lot of success, but it definitely makes them competitive in that respect, because the Empire being able to put the Amber Wizard and all of these other, heroic units on the Flying Pegasi, quite strong. So over here, my opponent is just kind of waiting for some of my units to route off here and just kind of chasing down these Forsaken, which is very, very well played. But the Forsaken were able to actually kill one. They do have very high weapon strength, though they don't have, enough really armor piercing to get through that 125 effectively. They still did quite a bit of damage, but my opponent's going to come in here and just kind of run over some more Chaos Warriors, so definitely a good time for these guys. You can see they're just getting run through. But I was really just trying to finish these heroic units, and it's getting kind of scary. These Chaos Warriors are steady, and a lot of my units are just at the steady range, which is pretty tough situation to be in. But thankfully the Aspiring Champions are still okay. This group is actually confident, and they're providing that encouragement, because every time I do send my Chaos Sorcerer over to chase something, these guys provide that encouragement, which keeps them fighting. And when you're at the wavering range right now, that's a very, very dicey situation, so having that is very, very important. So these Demogryph Knights are now shaken, which is great. Their numbers are finally dropping low enough, and this Empire Captain is still putting up just an incredible fight. And I'm just starting to cycle charge with this Chaos Sorcerer, but that kind of backfired there, because I actually knocked him out of the kind of circle here. He was actually wrapped up here and couldn't get away, but thankfully for my opponent, I did knock him away, so he's going to be able to get a bit of a healthy engage. But being a little overzealous, he actually runs right back into the middle of that pack. A bunch of Aspiring Champions who are going to definitely lay the smack down there. So the Demogryph Knights did come in again, but are now broken. They did take a bit of damage when they came in from some of these loose Forsaken, as well as the Aspiring Champs, and not a good situation for them. So at this point, we'll go ahead and fast forward the rest of the game, because it's kind of just an atrocious beatdown of this Empire Captain, but definitely a very, very fun game. It was very close. I mean, I didn't have much left, and neither did my opponent. One or two different circumstances in that battle, whether the Demis had gotten a better charge, or the leadership battle had just been a hit or two different, and that game could have gone either way. So very, very well played to my opponent. So we'll go ahead and take a quick look at the breakdown here. So you can see the Lords just both went down hard, didn't rack up any kills, just straight business on one another. But I liked having the dual Sorcerer threat. It's very cool. I mean, you could bring an Exalted Hero for 1400, and he will have better combat stats with over 400 weapon strength, if I'm not mistaken. But, this guy has around 350, and he also brings a ranged harass ability, which is quite strong. So I actually like to bring the Chaos Sorcerer with the Lore of Death. And when you do Lore of Fire spam with, like, the Cascading Fire Cloak and the Flaming Sword of Ruin, you're not really competing with the, in terms of Winds of Magic. It's all so cheap. Spirit Leech is like 8 or something, and then the Cascading Fire Cloak, I believe, is like 5 or 6. Very, very doable. So Aspiring Champs, obviously very, very strong in this game. They didn't rack up the most kills. Granted, there's only 12 models of them, so they're not going to be spread as wide. The Chaos Sorcerers did pretty good. You guys saw they absorbed that initial fire quite well. But of course, the Forsaken, look at the kills on these guys. Like I was telling you, if you can get them around the flank safely without getting run down by Cav, they can tear it up. Very, very strong unit. And the Chaos Warhounds did pretty good. Trolls did okay. There were no great swords for them, so they didn't really have an optimal situation. And that man score got punished, of course, but, you know, it did its job. My opponent's forces, the Spearmen actually did okay. This group got 25 kills, but the Demogryph Knights were just MVPs, and the Sunmaker definitely didn't pay for itself, but, you know, if my build had been a little different, perhaps it would have been better. So, again, good game to my opponent, Duncan. I look forward to seeing you again on ladder, and I hope you guys enjoyed that Chaos game. Have an excellent night, and take care.